Welcome to Level Up Tribes. Level Up Tribes provides resources to help you attain the necessary resources to level up your mind, body, and soul and realize your full potential. It is about exploring, learning, providing you with the tools from the experts for you to create a better version of yourself. I am your host, Agnes Goodwine, and welcome, Tribes.
Hi, Agnes. Hello there.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Welcome to Level Up Tribes podcast. Excited to hear our discussion today, see what comes through.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's very nice to meet you, and I'm honored to be your guest.
Thank you. Love the accent. Where are you from?
New Zealand, originally.
You're my first from New Zealand.
Is that right? Okay. And where are you from?
I was born in Puerto Rico, but I live in Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, right. Okay. Great.
Where are you calling me from today?
I'm calling you from the south of Italy.
Oh, wow. Awesome. How's the weather?
Well, it's winter. It's a little bit cool, but it's, sunny skies and beautiful Mediterranean Sea. So I love it.
Oh, I love that so much. Well, thank you again. Today I have Liam Natum. You are a speaker, a teacher, author, and researcher, to name a few things on your list of things that you do. And today I've invited you to talk about the 9 habits for an unshakable marriage, as well as your neural state rebalancing system. I found that very fascinating. You do many things, but those two kind of like jumped out at me. So you're welcome to talk about any programs that you have under your belt. So yes, I'm actually very excited to kind of connect those two.
Sure. Well, maybe if I could give you a bit of a background as to how I do what I do and
Absolutely, yes.
Work with those things, because I guess I've been a student of success and trying to be the best I can be and trying to be successful for most of my life, really. And I've done all sorts of different things, from trying religion. I was brought up in a religious household, and, there we were told if you want to be happy and successful, you pray. You ask God for what you want, and you pray, and God gives it to you. Well, it didn't quite work out as well as I'd hoped when I tried that. So I went on to lots of other different things, and I also went into setting up my own businesses. And alongside studying business and practicing business success with, motivation and goal setting and marketing and all those things, I was also studying anything I could get my hands on to do with how to be a better person. So I went to lots of seminars and workshops and read books on, spirituality, personal development, changing your beliefs. We've heard of all of these things about changing your subconscious mind, doing all those practices, and lots of spiritual practices as well, meditation and lots of different spiritual things. So I thought I had a pretty good handle on how to be successful in your life, because when I looked at my own life, I was doing pretty well. I actually ended up as a multimillionaire. I had a few businesses. I thought things were going pretty well. I only really had one problem, and that was I wasn't that happy, which is ironic, isn't it? We're all chasing after, quote, success, but where's the happiness that comes with it? Because I had lots of stress and problems along with the success, if you like. And in fact, I very much went along with the thinking that if you want to be successful, if you want to achieve a lot in your life, then you're going to have problems. You're going to have to overcome big challenges. You're going to have to work really hard and struggle and deal with problems. And that's what my life was like, full of stress, full of problems. And I thought, well, that's just what happens. That's the price you pay of success. But anyway, as I was carrying on doing this and gathering all this information, in my mid-40s, something happened to me that should never have ever happened, given that I was such an expert on success, and that was I lost everything. And I literally became homeless, lost everything virtually overnight, and I had to move back in with my elderly mother and sleep on the sofa in the living room in her small apartment. So it got me thinking, amongst other things, what was I doing wrong? What had I done wrong? Because I thought, I know about goal setting. I know about how to have the right thoughts and beliefs and the law of attraction, projecting your thoughts, manifesting, all of those things. I knew about all that, and I'd actually done a lot of work on doing those things. But it wasn't in any goals list of mine to lose everything and become homeless. So I thought, there's something here that hasn't worked. So that puzzled me for a while. But then another thing really puzzled me, and that was when I got through the experience, as you do, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, the bad times don't last forever, all that sort of thing. But as I started to rebuild my life, I noticed I was doing things, or things were happening in a very different way. Because sure, I was starting to set up my own businesses again, and I was starting to be successful. I was starting to make money. I was starting to have some nice things in my life. But I suddenly realized one day what was different. And that was, I didn't really have any stress or problems. And it really got me thinking. And I thought to myself, I'm actually really happy now with my life. And I thought back to my previous life, if you like, before the losing everything. And I realized there was such a difference. And I thought, I want to know what this difference is, because there's something I'm doing now that is working. And it's and it's giving me a very different result to what I used to get. So I need to figure out what this is, because I don't want to mess this up. I wanted this to keep going. I was very much in the place of enjoy, and I still am, enjoying life, looking forward to the next day, going to bed at night, being happy and satisfied with what I'd done. But there was another really big difference in what was happening to me. And that was what I noticed, whereas before I'd been chasing after success. So I'd always had this mindset, write down my goals, create new and bigger goals. I had all the lists and the visualization boards and the time sheets or the time frames to achieve them and all those things, and go and learn more information and read more books, go to another seminar, and try and force things to happen, try and force success, so chase after success. That's what I'd been doing. Whereas now, after this had all happened and I was so much happier, it really felt in a strange sort of way that success was chasing after me. Things were happening that weren't really things that I was forcing to happen. So I'd meet people like a coincidence, it would seem, by chance. I'd meet somebody who'd say, William, here's an idea to help you do what you do. And I thought, oh, there's a good idea, I'll do it. And it worked. So I thought, I need to figure out what I'm doing here. What's different? And that's really what's led me to the work I've been doing over the last few years, because I started out doing a lot of work, which I still do, with people in relationships. And you mentioned I have a program called the 9 Habits of Great Relationships. And I still do a lot of marriage coaching for people. And the foundation of my philosophy on coaching, which is actually very effective, is to say, what are people doing who are in good relationships that people who aren't in happy relationships aren't doing? And there's an even more fundamental way of asking that question, which everyone can ask who's listening, which is to say, if I'm not happy in my marriage or my relationship, or if I have problems, what am I doing differently to the time when I was happy and when I didn't have problems? And we could all think back to the beginning of our marriage, or when we first met the person who became our partner or our spouse, and think, things were very different. And that's what the 9 habits are, is identifying that you've got different habits now to what you were doing when things were working well in your relationship. So that's what that's all about. Because the thing that puzzled me as well was I used to think that success, in other words, being happy, was dependent on the amount of information that you gathered, or the amount of motivation that you had, determination, effort. But what I noticed in my new life was that I was certainly putting in a lot of effort, but I didn't have all the stress and I wasn't, determined and trying to learn more information. Things were coming to me. So it was quite different. And when I started to do coaching for people in their relationships, I noticed there was a difference between the people who were succeeding in solving the problems in their relationships and those who weren't. And that led me into the next area, which really to me has become more of my focus, which is about how we really do get the results we get. And that comes down to using a machine that we've all been given, which is our success machine, which is our brain. And I realized that the fundamental difference between people who are getting success in their life and people who weren't, including me, including the old me who wasn't happy and the new me who was, it actually comes down to how this machine, the brain, is being used. So we could talk a little bit about that if you like, but that's what I found fascinating and what I find is so effective in people really getting the results they want rather than just dealing with all of the stress and the problems all the time.
Yeah. No, I absolutely love that. I wanted to ask you a question in regards to your experience working with couples, whether they're married or starting a relationship. Do you see a common theme from, I don't know, maybe someone that just have been married for 5 years compared to somebody being married 20 years? Do you see that it's the same common problem over and over again?
Absolutely. And it's not only the problem for people in relationships, it's actually the core reason for every problem that everybody has in their life. And I know that's a really big claim to make, but that was the conclusion I came to. And it comes down to how we use this thing called our brain. And we could go into a bit more detail, but just to give you a clue, the problem is fear.
Mm.
And so people's attitude to life, is it based on fear or is it based on trust and understanding? And another way of putting that is letting go and allowing. Are you afraid of what's going to happen and therefore you try and force things to happen? Or do you allow things to happen? And it turns out those aren't just the difference is one, obviously, it's based on fear. You have fears about things, about your relationship. So it doesn't matter whether you've been in a relationship for 5 years, 10 years, 5 minutes. If you have fear behind that, it's not going to be as successful as it could be. You are going to end up with problems. And it's the same with every other area of your life. If there's a fear behind it, and with fear, I also mean anxiety, worry, stress. They're all indications of fear.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to be effective in your life. And this isn't a spiritual idea. This is a biological idea. It's to do with how your brain works. Your brain works in a very different way when fear is the driver as to when another part of your brain, which I call your natural creative brain, when that's in control, your life works in a completely different way to when you've got fear there. So that's the short answer. That's the problem, fear.
And I know, I mean, we can talk about this and really go deep. You know, when you mention fear, someone that has had a lot of trauma from childhood, and then you don't really fix it, and then you become an adult, and then you bring somebody else into your life, and you haven't really figured out your own self, and you go back to fear. So somebody with childhood trauma, who has fear, who has anxiety, is actually giving that to their partner. And so when they're not communicating, you have those going back to the brain. I don't know. I'm trying to make sense of it in my own way. I don't know if I can use the word mirroring. If I'm fearful, if I'm coming into my marriage or relationship from a fear base, I'm going to kind of project that into you as my spouse. And if you're not understanding where that's coming from, that's, I guess, when the miscommunication kind of comes in.
Well, it's actually more fundamental than that. If you come into anything with fear, your brain is going to get you doing the wrong things. That's it. It's not actually anything to do with anybody else. It's to do with yourself. You are going to do the wrong things because your brain, in a fearful state or an anxious state, it blocks off one part of your brain, your higher awareness, and it unlocks the part which doesn't know what to do. And that's why people say, I don't know what to do and I'm stressed and I'm confused. Of course you don't. Your brain isn't allowing you to do that because in a fearful state, your brain is doing something else. And we'll talk about what that is. It's not, when you're in a fearful state, the part of your brain that's operating is not the part that knows how to solve your problems. And that's why you struggle with problems. That's why you don't really create real solutions. But when it comes to relationships, this is the fundamental thing I work with people on, is what are people really afraid of in a relationship? And once you start, and people could ask themselves, how would I feel if my relationship ended? What am I afraid? What do I think would happen that I wouldn't want to happen? or wouldn't happen, if my relationship ended. And if you can say to yourself, I wouldn't want it to end because I'd be afraid that I'd never find someone else, that I'd end up on my own, that my children would be harmed by the end of my marriage, that I'd think I was a failure, that other people would think I was a failure, that I wouldn't know what to do to survive. They're often the most common fears, but these are the fears people bring into a relationship. And they're literally what is stopping you from having a really good relationship. Because when you started out with not you, but, we're talking to when one starts out, when you start out and you meet somebody and you fall in love and you're, is there any fear there? Are you worried about whether it's going to fail? Are you worried about what people are going to think? Are you worried about losing this person? Not usually. You're just enjoying it. You're thinking this is great. And because of that, your brain is in a particular state where you do the right things. So what do? You praise your partner. You congratulate them on things. You see all the good things in them. You have fun and laugh. You don't criticize. You don't want to work on your problems. You don't even want to work on your relationship. You listen to them. You accept their point of view.
Yeah.
But that's the opposite to what most people do when they have problems. Because if someone comes along, and I work a lot with people who their husband or the wife comes to them and says they want a divorce, and they get into a total panic. Now, why would they get into a total panic? Because they're afraid. Oh, I don't want my marriage to end because I won't know what to do, and all those other fears I talked about. But it gets you doing all the opposite of what you used to do that made your husband or wife want to be with you. So you criticize. You start to want to talk about the problems. You don't listen to them. You try and change their mind. You get upset. You don't accept what they're telling you. Mm-hmm. And do you think any of those things are going to make them feel any better about you and want to stay with you? Of course not.
Yeah.
So this is what I mean. But it's your brain is getting you to do the wrong thing because it's using this part of your brain that's not designed for you to do the right thing. So that's a practical example, but it's so true, not just of relationships, but every aspect of life. When you feel afraid, you are going to make mistakes. You're going to do the wrong thing. And you're also not, we often get that, or sometimes get that, that gut feeling. I shouldn't be doing this. I know it's the wrong thing, but I'll make it work. I'll force it to happen. We say that about relationships. They're about a 70%, but that's all right. No relationship's perfect, and I'll overcome all the challenges. And we think that by motivation and determination, we can force something good to happen. Yeah. But we're not listening to that inner voice. And that inner voice is our voice of wisdom, which is telling us you're making the wrong decision. And that can be in business. And I used to do that all the time, make the wrong decision in business and personal things, and end up with messes and problems that I had to spend my time clearing up. Whereas if I hadn't been afraid that I had to do that, then I wouldn't have done it, and I wouldn't have made a mess of things.
So now you got me thinking. So when you're coaching and teaching your methods to, let's just say, a couple, like which one comes first in your modules? Like, do you go through the 9 steps of cultivating a great marriage, or do you focus first on your NFR program? Or do you use both techniques interchangeably?
I've got lots of programs, actually. They're just 2 of them. I've got a lot on relationships. I've got a 30-day and a 7-day program, which are about healing your marriage and transforming your marriage specifically. Whereas the 9 habits program, so for people who've got real big problems, the 9 habits is not the right program. They need one of my coaching programs, which deals with things like overcoming hurt, learning how to communicate properly, learning how to develop intimacy, learning how to understand your spouse. But the fundamental teaching throughout all of my programs is you need to understand how your brain works and remove all of the things that are making you afraid. Because it just keeps coming back to this. When you use your brain right, and I can explain how the brain actually works and why it trips you up, if you like, and why it will never create the life you really want. It will never solve your problems. It will never make you truly happy and feel in control of your life if you're using it the wrong way. In other words, if you're feeling afraid on any level. But that's really where it comes. That's the bottom line. That's what my neurostate rebalancing teaching is about. That's really about helping people to identify what they're afraid of and remove their fears so that they act in a natural way and attract the right things to them. And I'll just give you another example. And again, this is a relationship. If someone's husband or wife comes to them and says they want a divorce and they're not happy in their marriage, which, just maybe your listeners could think about this. Which do you think, here's a mini question for you, which do you think is going to make, so you're the husband and your wife tells you that, for instance, which of these two approaches do you think is going to make your wife want to change their mind and stay with you, or at least consider it? So the first approach is your wife comes along and says they want a divorce. Go, oh, no, you can't do that. Please don't do that. I beg you to stay. And they say, but I'm not happy. Oh, but no, it's all right. I'll fix things and I'll do lots of nice things for you and show you how great our marriage could be. And please don't, I can't live without you. I love you so much. I don't want you to leave. Now, how do you think that is going to make them feel? They've come along and told you, I'm not happy. And all you've done is say to them, you don't agree with them. And you're not listening. And you're going to try and change their mind. And you're going to do all these different things to prove to them that they are wrong.
Yes.
Do you think that would make them think that you appreciate them? And do you think that would make them think that you're an attractive person when you're crying around all the time and, crawling after them saying, can I? But how about this for an approach? They come to you and say, look, I'm not happy and I want a divorce, and go, wow, that I can understand. You're right. Our marriage hasn't been good. Wow, this is a bit of a wake-up call. And, of course I'm not happy about it, but hey, I can understand it. If that's your decision and if that's how you feel, then I totally respect that. It'd be nice if we could stay friends because I really admire you. I think you're an amazing person. And I'm so grateful for you sharing so much of your life with me. But I'll be okay. I know I'll be okay because I'm a good person as well. Now, do you think they're going to feel a bit better towards you if you take that approach? Of course they are. But what's the difference? Because I used to tell people this. And
the first one, I'm like, that's not really working, right? If that person is telling me that. But the second one, that approach, if I was the other person, I would feel validated.
Exactly.
I don't have to agree or disagree, but it is a validation statement.
It's a sign of respect, that you respect their right to have an opinion and to do what they want with their life. Yeah. But it always used to puzzle me. This is what I'd tell people to do. Don't beg and, try and change their mind and be all upset. Take a respectful approach and build some rapport and connection with them again so that they can maybe see that you are a great person and that they're probably making a mistake.
Yeah.
But I used to think, why won't people do that? And the difference I realized is not that people didn't want to see it. It's not that they weren't motivated. It's not that they didn't pray. It's not that they didn't study every piece of information they could about how to make their relationship work. It was none of those things, because they were very motivated when their spouse was telling them they wanted a divorce. What it was how they were using their brain. It's because they were afraid. And when they were afraid, their brain switched off all of the ability it has to create the right solution to your problem. They switched that part off and they were living in reactive state, being upset. And every time their husband or wife said something, they'd be, oh, did you say something good? Did you say something bad? Are we going to get back together? Or, oh, no, we're going further apart, And it was all nutty. And again, it wasn't their fault, but they just didn't understand that we've all been given this machine, and the brain is a biological machine and it works in a particular way. And if you don't use it the right way, as I say, it doesn't matter how motivated you are, how much you pray, how much knowledge you have, it's just not going to work for you. So when I discovered all this and how the brain works and started to help people to see that, the brain's very like a motor car in the sense that it is a machine. It's designed to do one thing. It's to get you to where you want to go. Now, with a car, it's going to do that. Reliably, predictably, that's its job. And you don't doubt it. You don't think it's not going to get me there. You don't get out every 5 seconds and check that the engine is still running to make sure. You're not all stressed and worried. You're just enjoying the ride and you're doing what you need to do to direct the motor car.
Yeah.
But it's the same with the brain. Or because what's the thing about a motor car? To get it to where you want to go, what has to happen? You have to know how to drive it. You have to drive it properly. Yeah. And if your 10-year-old son comes to you and says, "Can I borrow the car and drive it to the party tomorrow night over the hill?" You're going to say, "But you don't know how to drive it. You can't. It won't get you there." And not only that, you're probably going to break the car. You're going to have problems if you try and drive it without knowing how to do it. It's exactly the same with the brain. And it turns out the real conclusion we come to here, and it's a bit of a shocker, is if problems are simply a sign that you're using the machine the wrong way. Yeah. That's why problems show up. When you use it the right way, the problems disappear. That's what happened to me. I wasn't aware of it at the time until I back engineered it about how this brain works. But that's literally what it is. It's no more complicated than that. But no one's taught us how to drive our brain. We've all been, well, presumably we've all been taught how to drive a car, and we're all taught, well, you can't drive it unless you know how. But who's ever said that to us about our brain? You can't figure out your life until you know how to drive your brain, how to use your brain the right way. Yeah. No one's told us that.
I know.
They should have.
Right. Should be taught in schools.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Right. Funnily enough, it has been taught through religious and spiritual traditions throughout history, but nobody has ever, or very few people have really interpreted it in the right way and seen that that's what is actually being said, an instruction on how your brain works.
Thing about you, like you studied music, like that was your foundation.
Well, I've done lots of different things. After music, I had my own business selling wine. The old wine, women and song, I used to say. But so I have done lots of different things. I think music was a great passion in my youth, and I I played the organ, the pipe organ, and also did research into 17th century Italian music, and I really enjoyed it. I think one of the things I gained from that, because I spent 7 years at university studying music, and got quite a few different letters after my name. One of the things I gained from that was this training in research, in analysis. So, and that's what I've really used to find out all the stuff about how the brain works, how it really works. This is a scientific thing. Yeah.
Okay. I was trying to find the connection. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's probably at the research side, as well as enjoying the, the finer things of life, music, artistic.
Yeah, well, you're in the right place, living in Italy, and your wine. So, are you still kind of involved with the wine there?
No, I don't. I don't drink alcohol at all anymore. But and I'm only in Italy temporarily. I mean, I actually bit of a long story, but again, what I discovered was when you use your brain the right way, you get led in the right direction. It's one of the laws of the universe is the law of flow and least resistance. If you look in nature, and here's another really fundamental thing, I teach all of this in a lot of detail, but if you really think about it, we are all governed by natural laws of nature. We can't get away from them. So we can say, well, we're spiritual and we can, and all these things, but we have a biological body. We live in a biological world. And we are not only controlled, if you like, by the way nature works, we have a biological purpose for being here. Our body operates in a certain way, and we can't get away from that. And there are lots of laws of nature. You can say, well, I'm on a 10-story building and I'm going to walk out, but I'm going to pray, I'm going to be motivated, and I'm going to visualize and say affirmations, so I'll go up into the air. Doesn't matter what you do, you're going to go down. You're going to be governed by the laws of nature. And one of the laws of nature is what I call the law of thriving, because all of biological life, every living thing, and if you ask of any biological scientist, they will all agree that this is true. Every living thing has a biological purpose, and that is to be the best that it can be so that it has the greatest chance for survival. So every living thing is being the best that it can be so that it has the greatest chance for survival. That's how nature works. And if you really get out and look at nature, you'll see every living thing is literally being the best it can be. But there's only one species that doesn't operate like that, and that is humans. How many people are being the best that they can be? How many people are truly happy, fulfilled, passionate, feel that their life is flowing in the flow without resistance? Very, very few people. So we're doing it wrong. There's something about what we're doing that is at odds with the rest of nature, and that's why we have problems. We're all trying to walk off the 10-story building and go up, and then breaking our legs and wondering why we break our legs. We're fighting against the natural law, which is to be the best that you can be. But the beautiful part is all of nature, including us, have all been given a machine, a mechanism to make us the best that we can be. It's designed to ensure that we are, and all living things are the best that they can be, so they have the greatest chance for survival. And that's the brain. Everything's been given a brain, and all the brain is a machine to make that organism the best that it can be. Yeah. And for us as humans, that means being happy. It means not having problems. Because if you're not happy and if you have problems, that's not being the best that you can be, and that's not helping you survive. You're going to end up stressed and sick. So that can't be a biological function, a normal biological function of the world, is that you've got problems and you're stressed and you're unhappy.
Yeah.
It must be that you're using this machine the wrong way. And it turns out that's what it is. And it says it in the Bible, how to use, as I said, how to use the brain, the machine the right way. Yeah. But very few people understand this. And when you think about it, what are most people doing? They're trying to fight against the flow. They're saying to themselves, I don't have enough in my life. I have these problems, have these things that I'm not happy about, and I'm going to try and force solutions. I'm going to try and do something differently. They're fighting against life. Yeah. But that's not how we're designed to work. That's not how nature's designed to work. And that's where the problems arise. And that's why most people don't find the solutions to the things they're looking for and never really feel happy or in control of their life.
Yeah, perfectly said. We're complicated humans.
Well, we're actually quite simple, but we just don't realize how simple it is. It's actually easier to drive your brain the right way and therefore end up with a life without problems and stress than it is to drive a car. Yeah. And it teaches us how to do it in the Bible in very simple terms. But as I say, most people, we've just never thought about it like that. Right. You know, we're too busy thinking, what's the next thing I need to learn? What's the next book I need to read? And we have this fundamental belief, I'm not good enough. I need to improve. I need to be better, without realizing we're perfect. We've got this machine here that is the most powerful computer that exists on the planet. You know, it's got the equivalent computing power of 500 trillion computer microprocessors. There are these things in our brains, these cells called neuron cells, and they communicate with each other all the time. There's more than there are more of those in your brain than there are stars in the galaxy. Yeah. It's incredible the power that we've got, but we don't know that, and we certainly don't believe it. And so we're fighting against it instead of saying, right, it's a bit like programming a computer. If you sit down at a computer and you say, I want it to do something, you program it in and you hit enter or whatever, and you let it do its job. You know it's the computer doing the job. It's not you. You're not doing all those calculations, millions of times a second, and you're not getting all stressed and worried and think, well, it won't give me the answer. You know it will. You know that it's its job. So why are we stressed and struggling and trying to figure out things and get in the way of the best computer that exists? It's because we don't realize, A, that's what it's there for, is to make our life the best that it can be. B, that it can do it, that it is the most powerful computer by a long shot that exists. And C, that's what it's designed to do. We don't realize any of that. Tragic.
I mean, as a mindfulness teacher, and I teach that to my students, you have to have intention for yourself, intention for your life. We're in this society that is go, 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 but we don't go inner with our individual self to say, what's important to me? What is my brain, heart, spirit telling me that's right for me? What do I need to fix for myself? And kind of start there in that foundation and then move into different spaces that is going to cultivate the best version of yourself. And we're just in this society where you're constantly on all the time, that people that are not into mindfulness, that are not into the brain, that are not into spirituality, they don't know this conversation. as a teacher, for me, be in that space so you can evolve?
But what are you really teaching them? And I'm not trying to tell you what you're really teaching, because I know what you're trying to teach them. It's the same what I'm trying to teach, which is very simple. It's about letting go of your fear and being in the present moment. Because what happens in the present moment, that's literally the only place where you don't feel fear. I mean, most of the time we're off worried about the future, or we're feeling dissatisfied about the past, or having regrets about the past. We're not spending time in the present moment. But whether we're in the future, whether we're in the past, we've got these fears going on. And on a biological level, that means our brain isn't operating the right way. There's only one place your brain can operate right, and that's when you let go and focus on the present moment. But to do that, you have to really, as you know, you have to really allow. You really have to let go of all your fear. No expectation. As the Bible says, give no thought for tomorrow. Do not worry about what you shall eat, drink, or wear. It will all be provided for you. Now, people read that in the Bible, but they don't do it. They're busy writing their goals out and trying to figure out what their life should be like. But if you knew there's a part of your brain that knows what you want far more than what you do, and this is what I used to think. I used to try and figure out what I wanted, and what I actually got was completely different. And in fact, now, these days, what I get is not only completely different to what I thought I wanted, but it's far better. So I've learned not to have any expectation, not to try and figure stuff out, and allow this part of my brain, which is really our connection to infinite intelligence, which knows far more than we think we do about what we need to be happy. It'll bring us the right people, the right coincidences, if we allow it to do it. So when we're in the present moment, that's the only time we can allow, and this is biological as well. This isn't just a philosophical or spiritual idea. This is how your brain works, because when you're in the present moment, you unlock something, a part of your brain, which I call the natural creative brain. There are 4 parts to your brain, and this is the one that's supposed to operate, but it can only operate in an environment where there isn't fear. Because when you activate fear in any form, stress, worry, anxiety, lack of certainty, you activate a different part of your brain, which I call the survival brain, which blocks out all of this creative power. It's designed to block it out because it has a different function, which is to remove fear, remove danger from your life. You know, if there's a lion running at you in the forest or whatever, that's the only purpose of fear. But you can't activate that creative brain when you're in any other place in the present moment, and you can't be in the present moment if you have any fear. It's a place of total trust and allowing. But that's when you're in the car enjoying the ride, isn't it?
Yes.
You're looking out the window and enjoying it. You're not worrying about where you're going, or whether you're going to get a flat tire, or what's going to happen, or where you've been. You're just enjoying it, and that's what you need to do with your brain. And I'm sure that's what mindfulness is really about, isn't it? You're coming at it from a different angle to me. I'm coming at it from a biological explanation point of view as to why this works. On a physical level. I
think kind of on the same page with that. We talk about it in a way through the nervous system, right? So the parasympathetic nervous system, the sympathetic system, which is the fight, flight, freeze. So a lot of people just live in that stage all the time, where you want to move towards the parasympathetic system, where it's like rest and digest. We're in the same wavelength there a little bit.
That's exactly right. Yeah. But when you think about the implication of activating your parasympathetic nervous system, or activating your sympathetic nervous system, which for people who don't quite know, as you say, that's the fight, flight, or freeze. What happens to you on a biological level when you activate that is you shut down the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your creativity, your resourcefulness, your motivation, your ability to have a big picture, your greater awareness. And you also block out your brain's ability, and it has this ability to bring to you the right people, the right circumstances, and the right things to happen in your life for you to be the happiest and best that you can be. You block all of that out, because when you activate the sympathetic nervous system, the brain has only one task, and that is to remove an immediate threat from your environment. When you feel fear, your brain is sending a signal which says, there's something here that's going to kill you, and you have to react to it right now. Now, that's perfect for in ancient times when there were lions running at people in the forest all the time. They were real dangers. This is a biological necessity for survival, to have this function in our brain, where our brain recognizes there is an immediate threat, make you feel fear, activate the sympathetic nervous system, and get you shut down all of your higher awareness and creativity so that you only focus on the immediate negative, quote, negative danger that's in front of you, and you react and get rid of it immediately. Yeah. That's the only purpose of fear. But as I say, most people are running around thinking that in a fearful state, they can shape their life. They can solve their problems. They can figure out what they need. They can figure out what they should do. Your brain can't do that. It's not designed to do that. It's only using a tiny portion of your awareness, all negative, to deal with an immediate problem. So you can never do that. So this is why biologically you need to get rid of fear, because it's a bit like with a motor car. If someone came to you and said, not with a motor car, but if they came to you and said, here's a glass of hydrochloric acid and I want you to drink it, and you'd say, I beg your pardon? And they'd say, well, and you say, but look, hang on, what planet are you on? It'll kill me. It'll damage me if I drink that. And they say, no, wait, look, if you're really motivated, if you really, if you believe and have faith and say lots of, this won't hurt me, this will be fine, and everyone else is thinking about drinking it as well, you'll be fine. It won't damage you. Now you're going to say, look, I'm sorry, I don't know where you're from, but I know how it works. I know that if I put that stuff into my body, it's going to damage me. And it doesn't matter if you tell me you're going to shoot my grandmother if I don't drink it, or whatever the justification, or everyone's drinking it, or it's not that harmful, or, blah, blah, blah. You know that's how it works. It doesn't matter how justified you might be in drinking hydrochloric acid, it's going to damage you. It's the same with fear. And it doesn't matter how justified you feel, because people, their first thing that they say when they start to embark on this journey with me of understanding, which I teach through my coaching, when they don't understand, is to say, but I've got all these problems in my life, and there's all these terrible things going on in the world, and I've got all these reasons why I'm stressed and why I'm afraid. And, there's people I have to deal with who don't make me feel good, that make me stressed, or I'm in a marriage that makes me stressed, or I'm in a job that I don't like.
Yeah.
And I say to them, look, I'm sorry, this is just the way it works. It doesn't matter how justified you might feel about why you feel a certain way. If you feel that way, your brain's not going to be able to do its job. It's not going to be, you're never going to solve your problems. You're never going to find the right relationship or heal the one you're in. You're never going to find the right job or business or make it work if you're in that state, because your brain simply is incapable of doing that. Yeah. That's the way it works.
For those that are listening and they're stuck in a relationship, they're trying to find a way to fix their marriage, can you name a few of those by bullet points of the things that can cultivate like a very solid and healthy relationship?
Well, it would be giving the game away about what's in the program. They need to get the program to find it out in detail. But here's the thing, it's actually quite simple to work out. And that is to ask yourself, what did I used to do that I'm not doing now when things were going well in our relationship? But what am I doing differently? And there are all sorts of things, and I'm not saying these are necessarily the 9 that are in the program, but they might be, a little bit of a teaser there. But then they might be things like, fundamental things like, well, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't worried about our relationship. Now, that's a deep thing. That's what we're talking about. But it's little things like, I used to smile a lot. I used to laugh. We used to laugh. I used to tell jokes. I used to say to my husband or wife, hey, if you've seen this funny video on YouTube, I used to send them cute things. And I used to tell them how great they were, because I used to look at them and go, you're the most amazing person I've ever met. Do you know that? And you did that so well. I admire you so much.
Yeah.
And we used to do, and if they say something to you, you'd go, what did you say? I didn't quite understand. Can you tell me again? Because I really want to understand what you're saying. Oh, is that what you meant? Okay, great. Let's go out and have some fun. And did you sit down and talk about problems? You overlooked problems. Really? You thought, oh, well, I don't want to talk about, maybe there's a little something there, but it's just a misunderstanding. It's no big deal. Let's go back to having fun.
Yeah.
But are you doing any of those things anymore? Sometimes I say to people, when was the last time you smiled at your husband or your wife? And they're shocked when they realize it's been years sometimes.
Wow.
And it's just a habit. These are just habits. And they wonder why things have gone wrong. But, what you focus on, you get more of. We all know that. If you focus on problems, if you focus on, what's wrong with your life, what's wrong with the world, and we could explain how this works on a brain level, but just on a really simple level, it makes sense, doesn't it? You're going to see what's wrong. You're going to create, I've just recently published a book called Marriage Uncounselling, and it's a counterintuitive approach. And the reason I've called it Marriage Uncounselling is because when you go, what do people do when they have problems? They go to counselling. And what do you do in counselling? You work on the problems.
Yeah.
But here's the funny thing about problems. They never go away. If you focus on problems, if you ever manage to solve them, and usually, I used to find that you're not actually that successful anyway, you keep getting more problems. And you think, is there ever any end to all these problems I have to keep dealing with? And the reason is you're focusing on the problems. And that's what happens in a lot of, not to denigrate any counsellors, because there's some wonderful people doing that work. But what I've found personally, and for most of the people who've come to me and talked about this, is that when you focus on problems, you're just going to get, that's not a way to get rid of problems. And it does come down to how you're using your brain. But you can see these habits, that's actually about just, if that was the only thing they did was people decided, I'm just going to smile at my husband or wife and tell them they're a great person, I'm not going to focus on the problems, and just see what happens, their relationship would be transformed. I mean, they don't do that because they're afraid that won't work.
Yeah.
Again, the fear. Oh no, but what happens if it doesn't work? Or, but it's often as simple and as basic as that. That's what the 9 habits are really about. But you need to but they are simply habits. Your habit of not smiling at your spouse every day, that's just a habit. But your habit of focusing on a problem and saying something negative or critical to them, that's a habit as well. But they're not good habits. They don't work. They don't help.
I know. And, some people are smiling at your spouse, even if you're mad at them, sometimes, I find myself in those space, and I have to reflect back on me, because I'm like, that's kind of my ego. I don't want to smile. I don't want to surrender. I don't want to be the first one to say I'm sorry. So sometimes you have to evaluate your own, what you're bringing into the table from your own.
Well, here's one of the secrets to success in life. Yeah. And funnily enough, my partner that I'm with now and have been for quite a few years, she said this to me just after we met. And and she didn't quite know it at the time, but she's a very wise person, and she told me the secret to life, to happiness in life and life success. Because I was saying to her something like, well, what do you think about this? Or I'm not sure would you like to do this? And how do you feel about that? And what are you thinking? And she said, look, hang on here. Can we get something straight? How about you worry about what you think, and I'll worry about what I think? Okay? And that was such great advice, because here's the thing. If you get upset, this is the secret. If you get upset with somebody else or with something else, it's not about what happened that made you upset. It's what you think it means. And all you need to do is change what you think it means. So instead of it upsetting you that they do something, you change it to something that doesn't upset you. Then you're going to feel better. You're not going to activate the wrong part of your brain. You're going to do the right things. And your life is going to be an awful lot better. But, most people are out there blaming, if you like, circumstances or other people for how they feel. It's never got anything to do with anything out there. It's just what you think it means. Yeah. So if your wife, for instance, runs off with somebody else, if you get upset by it, and if you think about this logically, why are you upset by it? If they want to go off and run off with somebody, this is an extreme example, you're probably going to get upset people contact you over this one. But really, if you think about it really carefully, it's because you don't think they should behave the way they did. And why did you think they shouldn't behave the way they did? Because you don't approve. And why don't you approve? Because you think it's going to hurt you in some way. Because, they shouldn't do that. And people say this, oh, they shouldn't do that. They have done it. They are doing it. Why shouldn't people do people are going to do what they want to do. But if you get upset, then you're the loser. And the only reason you're upset, I mean, I've known people, you might have as well, their husband or wife runs off with somebody else, and they go, great, hooray, they're gone at last.
Right.
And what's the difference? It's not what happened, it's the meaning They thought it meant something different. It wasn't something upsetting to them. It was good.
I love that.
Or, yeah, but it's so true. Or people have an affair, and so many people who have an affair and they get back together and then they find that their relationship is so much stronger. It's because that affair was a wake-up call to their relationship. So instead of saying, oh, this was a terrible thing that happened and I'll never get over it, and I have to do all of this therapy and work to overcome the trauma of my husband or wife having an affair. If you change the meaning and saying, what's good about that? It's helped. It was a wake-up call for our marriage. We would never be in the situation we are now of getting back and working on our marriage and making it a lot better if we hadn't had the scare of that happening.
Yes.
So you can check, and then you can see it you can see it as a gift. When I lost everything all those years ago, well, a few years ago, at the time it seemed horrible, but I look back on it and think it's the greatest gift that I ever had, because it got me into thinking about all this stuff. Instead of going down the track that I was going down of stress and problems and trying to get more and, not being happy and being afraid all the time subconsciously and doing all the wrong things, it taught me all to take a different approach and to understand all this. And so I wouldn't be able to even know about it myself, let alone share it and help others, if that hadn't happened. So was that a bad thing, losing everything and becoming homeless and, my 73-year-old mother having to go into work every day to pay for my food? Was that a bad thing? Well, who can say? It wasn't, because of the meaning that I attached to it.
Yeah.
I can use it as a gift. And we all do that with every problem we think we have. We can turn them into gifts. Here's another really weird thing that you're going to get letters about, is that when you use your brain the right way, you see there are no problems in the world. There are no problems in your life. You see with a greater awareness, and you only see it because your brain, this part of your brain, is allowing you to have expanded awareness, which it doesn't have. It's shut down. Remember, it's focusing on the lion when you're in a fearful state. It doesn't want to. There's no use having higher awareness. You'd be dead. The lion's running at you. You don't want to be looking at the trees and thinking how beautiful everything is, and you've got to react. You've got to focus on the negative. But when you raise your awareness and you operate from your natural creative state without fear, and you unlock this part of your brain, you not only see things from a higher level of awareness, but you see the truth. You actually see the truth, and the truth is there are no problems in the world. The truth is everything is perfect. I mean, imagine if you thought to yourself, here's an idea, maybe everything is perfect.
Yeah.
Maybe the only reason that I don't see it as perfect is because I don't see it. Maybe it's something about the way I'm looking at it, the way I'm using my perception. Maybe I can't see it. It's a bit like, dogs. We see them reacting to sounds that we can't hear. So we know those sounds are there, but they're on a frequency we can't hear.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a level of frequency of awareness of the way things are that we can't currently see because we're operating out of a fear state. But maybe the truth is, as I say, even though we can't see it, maybe the truth is there are no problems, that everything is perfect, including your life. And the thing is, when you start to see that, when you do see that, that's when you become the best that you can be. That's when you're happy. That's when you're passionate and excited and loving and grateful, resourceful, contributing, and having a great life.
Yeah.
And that's what we're all biologically designed to be, except when the lion comes along. That's the only time we're not supposed to be happy and excited and cheerful.
Right. I love that so much. How can people find you? What's the best way for people to sign up for your coaching and other programs that you have available?
Well, the best place is just my website, which is very easy to remember. It's my name, liamnaden.com. And I've got podcasts there and lots of information and on really helping people with everything from specific relationship issues, which I still do a lot of, to more general problems or different problems, and to help them unlock the part of their brain that can see the answer and will get them to do the right thing. Because there's nothing more frustrating, I used to find, than you just can't find the answer to a problem and you just battle along. But here's one, can I just maybe, I don't know how much time we've got left, but I just wanted to mention, if people think, well, this sounds a bit, this sounds a bit theoretical. Here's an interesting scenario. one of your friends comes along to you and says, oh, I've got all these terrible problems in my marriage, and we don't get on, and I'm not happy. Or it could be a job, actually. I'm in a job. We'll use that one. I'm in a job and I really don't like it, and I'm really struggling and I hate it, and the boss is terrible, and I'm really working hard, and I don't know. And you say, well, you can see clearly what they should do. It's very clear what they should do. And you tell them, you say, leave your job, go and find a different one. But they can't see that. And they say to you, oh no, I've been here a while, I'm not going to give up on it. I've invested a lot of time and effort, and I'm going to make it work. And I'm going to go on these courses to improve myself, to be a better communicator or better at my job, and I'm really going to make it work. And you say to them, look, you don't get it. It's not going to work. You've never been happy. You've never. It's stressful. You could do something different. Now, what's the difference? That you can see what they should do. You can see the answer to their problem, and they can't see it. And the reason they can't see it is because their brain is not allowing them to see it, because they're in a fearful state. Yeah. So this is a very practical thing. Whereas if they're able to remove the fear, their brain would say to them, the right answer is to leave that job or leave that relationship, and don't worry, I'll lead you on to a better one. Yeah. Something unexpected will happen. So this is a very practical thing, and really that's the basis of my teaching, is when you can get your brain working the right way, all of a sudden you see the right things to do. And not only that, you actually do them. Because you don't need willpower, and you don't need struggle. You need effort, but you don't need motivation and grit, determination, because everything flows so much better, because you're allowing your brain to guide you along the path of least resistance to be the best that you can be, to have the best life experience you can, so that you do what you're here to do biologically, which is have the best chance of survival by being the best. The brain is there trying to do it. And just another thing about what it says in the Bible, I no longer am a practicing Christian, but I was brought up a Christian, and I did check out the Bible pretty thoroughly. But it says more than 300 times in the Bible, be not afraid. Be not afraid, literally. And how many other times does it say, have faith, trust, believe? Now, it's not actually saying that as a nice idea. It's an instruction on how your brain works, which is all the things we've been saying. Because what it could go on to say, well, the reason for that is when you feel afraid, you activate your sympathetic nervous system, and you block out all of the natural machinery and ability of your brain to have you living the best life, where I'm bringing you what you need to eat, drink, and wear. Remember that? And where you don't need to worry about tomorrow. Remember that? But your brain won't do that. It won't. That machine that you've been given won't operate when you're afraid. So just make sure, be not afraid. That's the instruction. And what I teach is in my programs is the explanation of that, why that works and how it works, obviously, but why that's true. Because it's a little bit like with a car, that you have to know a little bit about how it works before you trust that it will. It's the same with your brain. When you understand how it works, you no longer need to believe anything. You just know that's how it works. The sun's going to rise tomorrow. You don't believe it. You don't trust it. You don't have any thought about it. You just know that's how it works. And that's just, and it's the same with your brain. When you know how it works, you just naturally go, well, that's how it works. And one of the things you do is you eliminate fear, because you realize that's stopping it from working properly, biologically.
Is there anything else that you would like to add or discuss before we wrap up our interview today?
Well, we've only got another 3 hours, is that right? And secondly, I remember going to church many years ago, in the sermon, the priest, he'd been speaking for about an hour, and the congregation were like, oh no, and he said, and then he said, and secondly, and people like almost became a riot. I know I talk about a bit much, but
I love everything.
I guess there's not a lot to add, other than I think the fundamental thing I'd really like to communicate is this is a natural law of biology, how your brain works. You have a biological purpose for being here, to be the best that you can be, so that you have the greatest chance of survival. Every species has that. And you have what every other species has as well to make that happen, which is a brain. And if you're not being the best you can be, if you've got problems in your life, it's simply because you're using this machine the wrong way.
Yeah.
And when you do use it the right way, all of the stuff that's promised in the Bible about, everything will be given to you, and every other spiritual tradition about letting go, that's how your life's going to run. And you're going to realize that's the way everybody is supposed to operate, because it's the way the whole of the rest of nature operates.
Yeah.
The whole of the rest of nature is just every creature is just being the best at what it does. It's not getting stressed and worried and making mistakes.
Yes, I love it. Well, Liam, you're always welcome to come back.
Oh, thank you.
Let's do another podcast to talk about the brain a little bit deeper and the nervous system.
That would be great.
I would love that so much. So I'll email you some additional information about that future podcast.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Please visit the website at www.leveluptribes.com, and please subscribe to the podcast and share with your family and friends. Be sure to tune in to our next episode. Catch you all next time, my beloved tribes.